Look at that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, good morning, all. Welcome to the Common Good Podcast. Today's Tuesday, January 31st. If you're one of those people that has some kind of a subscription or a cell phone plan or a cable bill where you're allotted certain amounts of data or certain amount of access per month, today's your day. Last day, you got to tolerate that. Tomorrow, it all starts fresh. And just think, I got one of those notifications on my, I'm a middle-aged man, so we have cable, and that's how I pay for my internet. And I get this notification that I've used like 97% of my allotted internet usage. And I was like, I have allotted internet usage.
Is that a thing?
Have you used more internet than normal this month?
Okay, how would anyone know this? Who keeps track of their internet usage? That's what I was saying. I'm like, how did I even know? So, then I get out an app and I try looking in there and I can't figure out my internet usage. But then they send this little message, hey, you're about, and then we're going to charge you more money. Cable companies will charge you more money if you keep using it. But we do give you a free pass once. We get it. Sometimes things happen. I'm like, I don't know what happened in January. I have no idea how this has been any different than any other day. But I felt this sense of relief seeing that today was January 31st because I got that burden off my back. I can just burn through. And next month, short month, February, I'm just going to live free and easy.
You'll have internet to spare.
Yeah, I'd love to bank it. I'd love to just tuck it away in my savings pocket.
Like the government cheese mountain. Have you heard of this? Like we have just literal tons of cheese stored in a mountain. Government cheese.
No, truly?
It's real. Google that. We have a cheese stockpile.
Dan.
How long can they keep cheese?
Wait a minute. Before we keep talking about this, we need to just be very clear to the algorithms at YouTube that we are not peddling conspiracy theories.
No.
Well, okay, good point. Let's do a quick weather roundup, and then we'll tell people what happened to us last week. Where I live, I look outside, it's bright and clear, and 9 below zero.
Ooh.
Like you take the Fahrenheit, which is already real generous with getting to zero, unlike Celsius, right? We're at zero, not 32 degrees Fahrenheit. It's -9 Fahrenheit. There's a negative amount of temperature apparently outside. It is that cold. Just unbelievable. Rob, how is it there somewhere outside of Fayetteville, Arkansas?
Yeah, we got about 3 inches of sleet and freezing rain and snow yesterday. So we are on day 2 of inclement weather day. Thankfully, they called school yesterday while roads were still clear and there wasn't a bit of precipitation in the sky. But by 11 a.m. or so, it was sleeting hard. And they don't here in Arkansas. They don't treat the roads real well. There's not like they're not putting beet juice down to keep it from freezing and that stuff that the
hardcore street people.
Just
side note coming to you. We'll explain that joke in a minute.
Just cracking inside jokes here on the podcast. Yeah. So we've got kind of some rough weather. It's not as cold, but it is below freezing. And then we've got another round of sleet coming in.
Wow.
A little bit later today. So,
it's a good thing they kept the kids from being trapped in the buses, which I know happens in a lot of those places, and trucks falling off the.
Oh my goodness! Look at this.
Okay.
Just so we don't get flagged for conspiracy theories, the cheese stockpile is real. Up on the screen, we have this great graphic. We have 1.5 billion pounds of cheese tucked away.
Okay,
the U.S. government.
Cheese goes bad, doesn't it?
You stick it in, you dip it in some wax, and that'll last
Truly?
decades. Yeah.
Wax?
Wow,
I mean,
Yeah. Haven't you ever had the
Yeah,
cheese and the wax
yes.
wheels?
Yeah, I thought it was just
Yeah.
presentation packaging. I thought it was just it was a way that they.
How old are those baby bells?
Yeah, I don't know the timeline or the expiration date on the cheese involved.
And
But
what
I
is
do
the
know that we-
circumstance by which you're thinking, let's go get the cheese out of the mountain? Like, how bad off are we where you're like, you might live another 6 weeks if you eat the cheese? And then what? Like, what is the plan? Do you think there's somebody that, well, obviously there's someone because they've made a graph and this is a true thing and the government's doing it. Someone's in charge of the cheese stockpile. Let's see if we could reach out to that
cheese
person
czar.
and
We should
have them
get them
come on and
on
talk
the
to us
show.
about this. Yes, we should.
Yeah.
Yes, we should.
Did you ever watch the Big Block of Cheese episode of The West Wing? That's
No,
where I
is this
learned
how you
about
I'm sure I
the
have,
cheese
but I don't
stockpile.
remember.
It
Huh.
started out
Big
like,
Block.
1800s or something. In the White House, one of the early presidents literally had a massive block of cheese, and if you were poor, you could just come get cheese. And it stuck around.
Well,
This is
I
You
mean,
learn
I-
something new every day.
I have. Well, I'm not
politics
sure about that.
podcast.
But I do have questions. So one of them is, what about people that are lactose intolerant? Are they just going to be
first to
left
go.
out?
Yeah.
first
Left out of the apocalypse? They're just. I mean, either
first to
that or
go
like
in the
they have
in
to,
the chat
they have a
tragedy.
tummy ache while they're fighting the zombies. So that's one. Two, I'm sure Joe Biden has cut into the has cut the cheese. I'm sure Joe Biden has cut into the national cheese stockpile to deal with inflation. I'm sure he has. Bring down the price of cheese like he did with the price of oil with cutting into the national stockpile of oil reserves. I'm sure he's done that with the cheese as well. Why aren't Republicans speaking out about this? We are like we are dependent. We're going to become dependent on foreign cheese.
Yeah. Well, this is probably what keeps us from that. This keeps our leverage
actually
strong.
one of those good old-fashioned socialism kind of things that Republicans do like. This is a farm subsidy situation because milk
Where is the
production. I don't know where Cheese Mountain is.
Cheese
Oh,
Mountain.
we're going to go deep on this.
Milk
We're gonna do an
production has
entire-
drastically increased over the years. We're
Yes.
just, pumping those cows for all they're worth. Milk consumption, however, is down quite a bit. And so the government, to keep milk prices steady, is buying up the milk and turning it into cheese.
And storing it in the mountain. Now, are you guys watching The Last of Us on HBO?
Yeah, loving
No,
it.
that's a show worth watching. The Last of Us.
Yes, The Last of Us. Apparently based on a video game, which I didn't know. I'm not a video game guy,
I'm out.
but no. It's like the show
okay.
is
I'm
really
back
good
in.
on its own. I'm
back.
not a video game guy. You have to at least watch the third episode. Have you watched the third episode, Dan?
Yeah, I cried.
I mean, with
Unexpected.
just
You cried?
unbelievable.
Oh,
I'm
It
not
is
watching that.
Beautiful.
I'm not watching nothing.
Back out. Yeah, it's like it can be a
cry.
standalone episode. One of the better episodes of television you'll ever watch.
And there's
Really?
I don't know, there's a 45 minute section of it that I almost last night when I finished it, I almost just said to Vanessa, just watch this. Like we'll just jump in the middle here. You don't need to know anything.
Yeah.
Just watch this. But anyways, in that Nick Offerman, is dealing with an apocalypse taking place. And so bringing that back to the Mountain of Cheese, it seems like if the Mountain of Cheese was a real thing, Nick Offerman in The Last of Us would have found it.
Would have found it, yeah.
Well, I hope all our Hollywood elite screenwriters are watching this, and we can get that rolled on in there.
So I'm just going on record saying I'm not sure I believe in the Cheese Mountain.
Hey,
do your own research, Rob.
Quick
That's
hello
probably a
to
flag
Kelly,
for
to Kelly, who's in the chat saying she's cold in Kansas, and to Kimberly, who's in another part of the
Carrie,
Twin
not
Cities,
Kelly.
-10. where she is. So Carrie and Kimberly and Jim. Good morning, Jim. I think Jim's out in California and probably enjoying the 50th day of rain in a row out there in California or whatever's happening. Hey, here's the thing Rob was referring to earlier about the conspiracy theories. Be afraid. Last week we did our Tuesday roundup and got a notification from YouTube that somehow our broadcast had violated their conspiracy theory rules, and they took down the recording. And so they said, you can appeal it if you think that was wrong. So I clicked the appeal box and wrote a little note in there and said, hey, we're not doing that stuff. And they wrote back, like 45 minutes later and said, your appeal has been denied. Your video has been removed. Like my cable company, you get one freebie, but don't let it happen again. But they don't tell you what it was that that violated their conspiracy rules about spreading conspiracy theories. So I don't know what it is. Sometimes we mock conspiracy theories here, or we raise them in order to say this is a thing people hold to, because we want people not to hold to those. So I don't know what kind of, what kind of shutdown they're running over there at the YouTube. But anyway, so if you were trying to share that last week's episode with family and friends and trying to gather together around, the iPad and get the kids together to watch it, which we know a lot of you do, our apologies to you that is now has been
probably
removed.
Ruined a lot of weekends for people
by an algorithm. Yeah. So we're going to try to keep this thing on the on the truth train here and not be dipping off into that.
Two things with this. One, I would love for our regular listeners, if you remember last week's episode, if you watched along live with us, if you could maybe refresh our memories of what could we have said that was a conspiracy theory? That would be helpful if you remember. And two, I'm pretty sure this is going to be our last episode because I'm fairly confident that Cheese Mountain is going to get us permabanned from YouTube, and this is it. They're going to be like, listen, we warned you last week, and then you came back this week talking about Cheese Mountain, and we're just putting the kibosh to this thing.
It's as if you're trying to be kicked off of this platform. Well, I will say that we didn't receive that notification from Twitter. So over on Elon Musk's Anything Goes, you can still watch it there. And in the cesspool that is Facebook's conspiracy theories galore, it's still just hopping over there. But the good people over at YouTube, which is our preferred place for you to watch this. It's like the one that we love, said no. So if you're watching this anywhere else, go over to YouTube and say nice things about us so that they stop being mean to us. All right. Well, a lot happening in the news
to get to.
on the other front, and we'll start here with the.
Can we start with some breaking news?
Murder of Tyre Nichols.
Let's talk about that before.
Right.
Got some breaking news.
Breaking news report from about 20 minutes ago that will pop in here in a minute. I like all of you, just sickened to see the videos and to hear the recounting of family members of Tyre Nichols having to watch police officers brutalize him to the point of his death in Memphis in January. And it's, so many mixed emotions that people probably have about this, right? We don't want to get, what it probably was last week, by the way. It's now coming all back to me. It was the conversation about one bad apples, and that we were trying. I was saying that it was the Jackson 5, and that's probably the deep conspiracy theory of them all that got us kicked off. But we don't want to believe that of the 400,000 police officers in the United States that it's possible that more than a few people would behave like this. The tragedy of this story is that this young man, 29-year-old man doing nothing, was not brutalized by an officer, but a group of officers who had been arranged into a task force group that apparently was given extra freedom to behave in ways to try to deal with crime and violence in Memphis. And then other officers from the sheriff's department, people from the EMT crews, didn't respond, didn't do anything to protect Tyre as he sat slumped down on the side of police car for 24 minutes before an ambulance got there, and then days later died from the injuries that he had sustained. Just the callousness of the entire system.
Yeah.
Saying that this man, for whatever reason, they determined him to be someone they should treat in this way. It just can't be, oh, there's just random bad apples out there, because there's just too many over and over and over. And it's just maddening. No one wants to be blind-eyed to the brutality of the police, and it's not good for any of us to run around and simply disregard all police officers. But we're really in a pickle in this country trying to figure out how to think about this, because nothing answers the question. Total depravity can't answer the question. More training can't answer the question. More visibility doesn't answer the question. It's just really, really bad when the people who we depend on in our system to be the protectors or the healers are the ones doing the brutalizing. And it's I know everyone's at a loss and everyone is sickened. The fact that, 5 of the officers that were arrested were also black men is something that changes the conversation from what it's been like in a lot of the other police violence actions on black men and black women when they're white police officers. So that complicates matters additionally. Not saying that doesn't mean that race wasn't involved or that there's not a belief in police systems in our society that black men are more dangerous. People who are black tend to believe those kinds of untruths, as do people who are white. So there's some things about racism that permeates our society, and is particularly true inside of certain police forces, especially in Memphis. And there's just it's really terrible. I'm going to be done with my rant here in a minute. I'd love to hear from you guys. It's been good for me to hear other police officers that I've heard in news accounts from around the country saying these kinds of things are embarrassing to the police force, to the police forces all over the country, and we have to get a handle on it. It feels like this one's slightly different in that people in the police force communities are saying we have to deal with this inside the police systems, as opposed to we've got it. We have a system. We don't need all of you in here messing around with it. We know how to deal with people that violate our agreements. That they're saying something's not working here. So I'm hopeful that maybe somehow this horrible, brutal tragedy will be the end of a certain road. But I'm super doubtful about that.
Yeah, I'm at the point where I feel about these kinds of tragedies that happen with police brutality, the same way I feel about school shootings. It feels like everyone is gutting. Everyone should be the final straw. Everyone should be the thing that wakes people up and necessitates massive reform. And none of them will be. Wow. And it feels inevitable that it's just a matter of time until, it happens again. And it's so disconcerting, and so bothersome on so many levels. It's just, I barely have words, because it's just, this should have been dealt with decades ago. This should have been dealt with last year. This should have been dealt with a couple months ago. And so it's just, it's really, really difficult. I don't know about you guys. I force myself to watch these videos.
Yeah, I do too.
Not because I want to, not because there's any kind of I don't know, morbid fascination, but because it's just this, like, I can't look away. I can't become like, I just, me personally, I'm like, I can't become numb to this has to shock me every time. Um, and but I also feel like, wow, if this really shocked us, we would do something about it. And why haven't we? It's just, yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't bring myself to watch the video. I did watch videos of Tyre when he was alive, like skateboarding and enjoying life, and just equally gutting to know that this was, just a beautiful human being whose life was ended because we have a system that puts armed government agents in positions to end lives for traffic stops.
Yes.
And just starting there, like, why are traffic stops where maybe you have a light out or a registration? Why is that a moment where you need guns involved?
Yes.
Or violence involved?
And Dan, the punishment for a light being out, brake light being out, or your car registration being expired, the punishment for that is not execution.
Yeah.
And in these situations, what happens a lot, and seems to be the case here from the footage, that they grabbed Tyre immediately, had guns out, came in very violently, threw him on the ground, pepper sprayed him. Then he wrangled himself away and he ran, right? Because he's like, I'm being brutalized by these officers here. And apparently then you hear the police officers saying, give him a beat down, because there's this whole code that a lot of the police officers are talking about, how the way these, especially these strike forces like this Scorpion one that was there in Memphis, is designed to work, is to try to be a presence in the community as a real harsh force from the police on criminals, right? So they then want to send a message. You do exactly what we say or else. And when you run from police officers, then they feel like it's their prerogative to punish you. And this whole thing is so broken. This idea that somehow these officers roaming the streets are out there to be as bad as the bad guys, but the good guys. This thing is just, it's just outrageous. And a lot of the police commentators are talking about how that's part of what needs to change in this system, right? It's that, because I don't know if you've ever interacted with a police officer. I most certainly have. If you don't do exactly what they tell you to do, and they're coming in angry and hot, they will act as if the entirety of the judicial system is at their personal disposal to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
To arrest you, to cuff you, to hold you, to throw you down. I've had knees on the back of my neck and my face jammed into the ground by police officers. Like, that's the kind of stuff they do. And it's not just about the training says don't do it. A lot of the people I've been listening to who are like former police chiefs and so on, right? These are inside people in the system, are saying, look, there's official training like there is in any business or any, portion of society. And then there's how you're socialized to actually behave.
Right.
And the socialization is what we're seeing here, that this kind of, Kimberly writes in the notes that, she has a friend who is a police officer and with the sheriff's department. And after working in that system for a while, they become really jaded and really scared and really hardened and just don't put up with it anymore and don't tolerate it. And they're afraid for their lives. Like, there is fear and trauma and brutality all over this system. And they're selecting people who want to behave this way. So the whole thing is just not working. And look, the other thing is, had Tyre not died, much like George Floyd, had George Floyd not died,
We
there
never would
wouldn't
have
have been
known.
an investigation at these levels.
Yep.
Right.
If he was just beaten down in the hospital and, was left with the effects of this for the rest of his life, probably
Yep.
wouldn't have heard of it.
Because
But
this
an
is the tip
investigation
of the
start because
iceberg.
the guy died. So how many other people have been face down and knees in the back of their necks and hit with batons and had their and then the police officers on this thing are saying things to each other like, well, he reached for my gun, he swung at me. Like they're telling themselves a story. You can watch it on the videos. It's not true.
Yeah.
It's not
They're
what
also
happened.
saying things because they don't think the videos will show what's really happening. They're saying things like,
Give me
show
your
us your
hands.
hands, give me your hands. Like
Mhm.
they have his hands. They
Yes.
have him restrained, but they keep saying things so the audio picks up so they
wow.
can cover
Stop
the
resisting.
abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just
Yeah.
the system is so broken internally, and all the things that people said would help, more training, more diversity, none of it works. More body cameras.
Yeah.
Because this like toxic culture within is self-preserving. The good apples get forced out. The good apples turn into bad apples if they stick around too long.
And you're right, Dan. I think you're on it because there's this hierarchy, and you know how it happens inside of every system, right? Somebody's more in charge. When EMTs show up on the scene and they see that this Scorpion Strike Force, these people there that are given more elite recognition and power, even though all of these officers, the 5 that were part of this so-called Scorpion unit, all of them joined the police force from 2017, between 2017 and 2020. They're new, but they're given this status of do whatever you need to do to kind of clear the streets, right? So then other officers show up and they're like, oh, these guys are here, so they're more in charge. And there's a pecking order of who gets to intervene, who gets to say yes or no, and you saw it in the Chauvin case, where the murder of George Floyd, where the other officers are like, he's my commanding officer. That's not how the system works. So this idea that you have good apples and bad, like that's not how it works either. There's no supervisor on the scene. There's the guys who are more in charge. And can you imagine if you're another officer and you try to step in and stop this? Yeah. And Tyre Nichols doesn't die and it doesn't become a case that we're talking about, you're just going to be an ostracized officer inside the Memphis system. And this isn't just about Memphis. We could say it about places in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where we went and did a story, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in Little Rock, Arkansas, and all the places where the people on the chat are commenting. All of our towns have stories in the news about police force doing things like this. And we've escalated up in the last 30 years, this violence narrative in police forces to a level that, as you say, Dan, I think you're right. All the solutions we've provided, none of those have been enough. None of those have singularly been enough. And studies have been done about what causes a reduction in crime, and it's police officers behaving in the opposite ways that most of these strike forces operate. More engagement, more openness, more kindness is the thing that causes crime rates to go down. Not guys driving around in hot-rodded vehicles with a go get the bad guys kind of mentality that's happening. So I know that, getting rid of all these specialized units isn't going to solve the problem. Nothing is. It's that old adage, right, that we don't have a problem here because problems have a single solution. We have a predicament which requires multiple responses. So the number of responses that have to come to this are so vast. At some point, it's as if you're thinking, the system can't hold as it is because it's just a broken system all the way around in our policing and in our crime and in all the rest of it. And I'll just tag this one on. It has a lot to do with the availability of guns because a lot of police officers have a heightened fear that's justified that someone they're going to come upon is going to have a gun. So you can't talk about this without talking about the prevalence of guns in our society. Whether someone has the right to carry, as as one of the other murders by police officers of someone here in Minnesota, the killings of somebody here in Minnesota, Felice Castillo. Same thing. He was a licensed carrier of a gun, and when he tried to open that box in his car that had the gun in it, the officer shot him, right? Even though he has a right to carry a gun. So just the prevalence of guns causes everything to be escalated to just the most heightened level. And we're choosing not to solve that problem in our society, and we're choosing not to deal with the other issues in our society as well. And we're going to continue to have these stories happen many days of the year. I was going to say every day, but maybe that's a little extreme. I don't think so, but at least many days of the year. And periodically something will pop above the fray, and we'll all be hearing about it, as we did this tragic death of this young man and this fracturing of this community. And the a little 4-year-old boy's dad is now dead, and dead at the hands of the police, who now are going to go to jail for crimes that they committed. And as Jim in the comments says, him as a former police officer believes that these guys act as criminals. Yeah, well, we can't have so many police officers acting as criminals. I mean, this is a bit like, I'm going to sound like I'm talking about the Trump administration here, but what other sector of society do you have this number of people from a workforce of this size that also have criminals in them, to the point that they're tried, convicted, and that the cities around America are paying millions and millions of dollars in lawsuits?
Yeah.
No other part of our society has criminals to this degree. So we can say, hey, bad apple criminals in the police force. Shouldn't that be the place where there's less criminals than in the general work population and not more? It makes very little sense to someone like me.
Yeah. All that well said, Doug. I to maybe transition away from this story to another one that was kind of equally disturbing. I got in bed one night last week feeling like, whew, because it was the same day I watched the video of Tyre. I also watched the video that was released of Paul Pelosi being attacked in his home. And I was just, wow. Did you have a chance did you watch these videos as well?
I did.
And as it turns out, that what was released was home security footage showing this man David something or other, I can't remember his last name, breaking into the Pelosi's home. The release of the 911 call where Paul Pelosi is trying to remain calm and talk to the 911 operator in as normal and trying not to upset this guy, but trying to indicate to the 911 operator that, hey, we got a problem here and I need your help. And frankly, the 911 operator didn't seem to be getting it. And that was really difficult to listen to. As Paul Pelosi explains to the 911 operator that this man broke into his home and was going to wait until his wife got home, presumably to kill her. And, he was forced off the phone by the man. Really strange and difficult to listen to. And then the police video of them finally coming to the door being answered by Paul Pelosi and the man who broke into his home, the struggle for the hammer and that was being held, and the blow to Paul Pelosi, and then the police jumping on the man who hit him. It was just really, really brutal to watch and sobering, and also infuriating. Infuriating because we were subjected to Republicans like Ted Cruz and others cracking jokes about Paul Pelosi. We were subjected to conspiracy theories about there being some kind of affair, some kind of relationship, that the man didn't actually break in, that they all were in their underwear, that, just over and over and over again. We were so many Republicans and conservative commentators took this tragedy as an opportunity to crack jokes and take political pot
Yeah,
shots at the
Mhm.
Pelosi's. And as it turns out, they were wrong about all of it. They were lying about all of it, and it just shows the crassness that they have sunk to, and it was just absolutely heartbreaking to see.
Yep. And just the sheer cynicism in the system where people like Ted Cruz and commentators on Fox News and One American Network and these kinds of places and would be so comfortable as to say, oh, I'm sure it wasn't a crime being committed by someone who hates Nancy Pelosi. No,
Right.
I'm sure it was something that Paul Pelosi was actually doing that was wrong, right? This
Yeah.
kind of thing where the victim is clearly that, no way would somebody who, despises Nancy Pelosi to the degree that I despise Nancy Pelosi would ever do something quite so horrible. And they know that there's body cam footage from the police. They've heard that it exists, like we've heard it existed. They knew there was security footage from the home security system that was going to come out. And yet they still were saying, I'm sure this is something nefarious that the Pelosi's were up to,
Mhm.
even though they know that there's going to be recordings, video, audio recordings to show what happened. I saw one commentator on Fox News. He was a guest, and he was saying, well, we still don't know that the man broke in.
Yeah. I saw this clip
he was
too.
invited in. And then the host of the show says to this commentator, like, well, no, here's the video of him
Of
breaking
him
the windows
smashing a window
while
and
he's
climbing in.
saying, we don't know that that's the real thing. Like this level of cynicism, right?
And it was all
again,
amplified by Elon Musk on Twitter. I don't know if you remember this, but he used his massive platform, the owner of the, one of the, what is it, the world's town square, whatever he likes to call it. He gets on his soapbox there and says, hey, I don't know, this looks pretty weird.
Yeah.
And then there's this plausible deniability from all of them. Like, well, we were just asking questions.
Yeah.
We were just poking around.
Yeah, and it reminds me, the same type of thing is happening right now and has been happening with around the situation with Damar Hamlin, who was the football player who had cardiac arrest on the football field, Buffalo Bills player who had to be revived and taken to the hospital and has made an amazing recovery. But the story that kind of gripped the nation, there are a number of people, like you don't have to flip over too many rocks to find people who believe that Damar Hamlin actually died on the field as a result of getting the COVID-19 vaccination.
Which are things that we are saying are not true. Just YouTube algorithm. See, we're saying those things are not true.
And
They're gonna get us. They're gonna get us.
and his appearance at the Bills playoff game, and even the video that has been posted of him addressing fans, all of it they say has been faked. It's a body double. It's a deep fake. It's like this is all a cover up. Like this level of disconnection from reality is really, really disconcerting.
Yeah.
That
it is.
we have people that if the facts don't align with their particular perspective or political persuasion or their whatever it might be, their go-to response is, oh, it's all faked, or it's all, how can we be in a society where we can't even agree on what the facts are? It's really, really disconcerting.
And it's only going to get worse because of these AI deep fake machines where you can just put your face on, another video and you can,
And this, we'll talk about these other stories here in a minute, and it connects to the idea that Donald Trump would sit on the telephone to the president of Ukraine and say, we'll get you military support, but I need you to do us a favor first, right?
Yep.
On a recorded call as the president with people listening. Doesn't care. I'll just say that's not what I said. We'll call the Secretary of State of Georgia and say, I just need you to find us these votes. And then later you can just say that you did a recount. That's all. We'll take it from there. We're recording this. People are listening in. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Because it used to be that many eyes, this theory of many eyes, lots of people looking, lots of people watching, everything, that felt new and felt like a protection. Now there's a whole movement of people. I'm sure there's some who hold the kinds of political beliefs that I hold. I have a hard time finding them. I see a lot of conservatives, though, who just deny the very thing that they are doing, saying, and have recordings of, and then just act like it does not matter. And I'll say, well, I was just, making some commentary at the time. And just over and over, there's, we can get to Santos in a minute because I heard there's some breaking news on that, but he's another one of these guys that, again, just another opportunity. Something has been shown and proven, and yet the proof in the pudding doesn't make any difference. You get done with the pudding and you're like, the pudding clearly, I don't even know what the proof in the pudding is, but the pudding clearly was not made with milk. Or whatever the proof in this is in the pudding. And then someone's just like, yeah, but that's unimportant to us. Simply unimportant. And we're not even like post fact. This is just sheer deniability of something you're actually looking at. Like these guys run around like a bunch of magicians just saying what you just saw is not what you saw.
Yeah.
It's really, really troubling.
Some 1984 stuff.
Yeah. So here's the breaking news on George Santos, our favorite congressman. In case you don't know, George Santos, if that is his real name, is the congressman from Long Island. Won a disputed, not disputed, but a tight election in an open seat that previously had been a Democratic seat, helping Kevin McCarthy win the majority in the House of Representatives. As it turns out, pretty much everything we know about George Santos is not true. And there's this ongoing, just daily revelation of all sorts of things about him. Breaking news from Jake Sherman at Punchbowl News. And Jake Sherman's one of the really good journalists in DC. Breaking news. This is from 51 minutes ago. So I don't know, maybe it's broken by now.
No, not in this world. Imagine people that watch this 6 weeks from now. They're really going to feel like it's not breaking news. Yeah. That's when it's not breaking news anymore.
Wasn't that guy arrested or something? Breaking news from 51 minutes ago. George Santos tells House Republicans he will recuse himself from sitting on committees. Just happened in a closed GOP meeting. So George Santos is saying, listen, guys, before you kick me out of the House, this is the kid that says, listen, I'll sit in timeout so you don't have to ground me. Like that, like this is, I don't know. What do we, and I have another theory on the no committee thing, but
here's my theory on the no committee thing. He's a genius. When there's show horses and workhorses, he's like, you know what? Don't give me work to do.
Yes.
I don't want to be on a committee. I don't want to have to read reports. I don't want to have, I will be a congressman for 2 more years until I lose, and I'm just going to make the best of it. So why don't I just recuse myself from the work? He's like the middle-aged manager that watches the young, new hires be all eager to get busy working, and they're like, okay, good for you. We like your initiative. Keep asking to do more things. In fact, send me an email and I'll give you a list of the things I do all day that you can do.
Yeah.
Turns out George Santos is a genius.
The no committee thing is really interesting to me because who spent the last 2 years without any committee assignments? Marjorie Taylor Greene. And you know what she
wants
did
to be in charge of them.
Yes, but you know what she did instead? She basically had a podcast that she did instead, while all of her colleagues are working, she's podcasting, building her profile, building her following. And as it turns out, she was one of the highest fundraising Republicans in the House of Representatives. Like maybe the pathway to stardom in the House of Representatives, the way to get ahead of the other 434 representatives that are there, is not by working harder, being smarter, doing a better job. Maybe it's loafing and turning yourself into a celebrity. I think George Santos might be. I think there's two things at play. One is he's trying to, stave off any further punishment by self-reporting this, and then secondly, I think he sees the pathway to stardom being, not having to do the work of being on a committee and using that time instead to self-promote.
Well, what a champ that guy is. Hey, don't kick me out of my, $170,000 a year job for the next 2 years. Just give me less to do. I mean, unbelievable, this guy. He's got a level of genius in there. He's quiet quitting. Kimberly Johnson said he's quiet quitting his job. Good one, Kimberly.
That's fantastic, Kimberly.
By the way, what he's not then going to be looking at, old George, if that's his name, Santos, is the misuse of COVID funds, which, as it turns out, under the Trump administration, they were giving away a whole bunch of money and didn't know where it was going. Somehow this is going to get tagged on Democrats, and it blows my mind that all this stuff happens under Trump, right? Those PPP loans and all that stuff. I know that Democrats were in charge of the House, but it was under the Trump administration that all this nonsense was going on. And there were $5.4 billion that they've already identified as being connected to shady Social Security numbers of people getting PPP loans and the other kinds of loans and so on. So that, people were grabbing a little something that didn't belong to them, which is a lot of money. Again, just a little side note, but about 2/3 of the amount of money that we spend on potato chips every year in this country, but still a lot. I mean, it was 2/3 of the potato chip fund for America that was hived off by people who were acting badly. And now the House of Representatives is going to dig in to figure this out. Here's what I find curious about this. The same people, the Republicans running the House, that are saying we have to get to the bottom of where did the money go that was given out through PPP loans and other COVID responses, are the same people saying we will not fund the Internal Revenue Service to find out how people have absconded with the money that they should be paying in their taxes. So they're very concerned about deficits, apparently, and very concerned about COVID misuse, but they're not concerned at all about people cheating on their taxes and not paying their fair tax rates. And in the same moment, they're supporting committees that are trying to do two opposite things: enforce the legality of money in relationship to the government and not enforce the legalities of money as it relates to the government. It's just a stunning act by this by these Republicans, that they can simultaneously care and not care about what's essentially the same thing. Whether it's money the government gave you or the money that the government lets you keep.
Yeah. Listen, I might want to take a contrary opinion on this one. Who cares? Who cares if $5.4 billion in COVID aid made it out into the economy in the midst of a pandemic?
Right. The point was get it in the economy. Yep. That's
good.
Right.
Like, if it went out,
this didn't go to the economy.
Nefarious yeah, it did.
This went to corporations that inflated their payrolls so they could get the money for these fake employees. But it still went in the economy. So who cares if it went to real employees or to not real employees? It's in the system. Is that your point, Rob?
That's my point. Yes.
Oh, so it trickled down from the
no
corporations.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure corporations. I'm not sure like Pepsi Cola is reporting false social security numbers. My guess is it's probably it's probably small businesses doing
It was
this,
also
not
churches. It was
well, of course.
Yeah. Dan's business called Cheese Mountain LLC picked
Yes,
up
Cheese
about
Mountain
4,000 of those.
LLC got a lot
still
of
mad they
money.
didn't do my PPP loans for that.
How did you have all those employees
I'm just
working over there
saying,
in
like,
Cheese Mountain?
There's a lot of cheese. We have a lot of employees.
I'm like, this is. I don't care. I don't.
Well,
I don't
I'm with you too, Rob. I just think like the idea that during the shutdown and all the things that were happening, they just wanted to pump trillions of dollars into the system, and the best way to do it was to put it into people's bank accounts directly, because that's the best thing for the government to do. By the way, I mean, I'm from that camp, right?
Yep.
If you want to keep the economy going with new money and destroy the money that you take out in taxes, which is how it works, you're better off not giving it to somebody who then's going to give it to somebody else, like it's mom and dad taking the kids to the fair, and everybody has to get $3 from their mom before they can go buy their lunch. Just give it straight to people's bank accounts.
Yep.
That's the best thing to do. It's what works. So I'm also of the opinion, if the point was to get money into the system, it doesn't really matter how that got distributed, whether rich people put it in their savings account or people like me spent all the way through all of it before the end of August, because the point of it was not merit-based system, not earning, not deserving. It was keep the economy moving during a time when people are not working and doing all the other things that generate income.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. Like in the emergency situation we were in, you want to just throw a bunch of money so that people stay alive while they're unemployed. But in hindsight, we can also say, oh, like these people abuse the system.
Yeah,
we can now have consequences for that.
Right, right. You shouldn't get to cheat when someone's trying to do a good thing. That's a good point.
Yeah. And as Jim says in the comments, Republicans are upset that someone dipped into the dip reserve before the chip reserve.
Yeah. Clever. See, the best listeners in the world on this thing.
Well done.
Well, and this COVID spending then ties into the desire that the Republicans have to have a big fight over if we're going to increase what's called the debt ceiling. I'm just going to be lecturing about this for a minute. Thursday, we're going to do a longer bit on all this. Calling the United States federal government deficit debt is inaccurate to the point of being dishonest. How it works is that the total accumulation of the United States debt from its founding, from maybe 1780, somewhere in there, the deficit that we have, or the national debt, the thing that runs on a clock outside of, some big park in New York City, it's tallying up every second, spinning, this thing that we have to set a limit to increase or decrease. That debt is the total amount of money that the United States government has created through the Treasury. All the money created, it's in one column, minus the amount of money taken out in taxes is the other column, and the difference is the deficit.
Mm-hmm.
Calling that debt, that's not debt.
Nope.
What the federal government does through the Treasury is produces the currency and decides how much should exist to make the United States federally backed currency, the US dollar, function. How much is there? Trillions and trillions of dollars. When there gets to be too much money working in the system, then the government wants to take some out. So they're like filling and refilling a coffee cup. When they take the money out, they don't put it into a bank account. It just goes away. Tax money from the federal government just goes away. That's the money that's been taken out. The difference for how much has been taken out and how much has been put in is what's called the deficit. If you took out all the money you put in, think about what would happen. There would be no money. You took it all out, right? So that difference is what lets the country roll. Now, what the government does sometimes is the government says, rather than take the money out through taxes, we'll take the money out by putting the money in. It's this little trick they have where they sell you a bond. So then you can say, okay, government, I'm going to send you $100. So you take that $100 out of the economy. It's no longer exists in the economy. But in 10 years or in 20 years, you're going to pay me back $120. So now you owe me $20 more than I put in if you keep my money out of the system for 20 years. So instead of taking it out through taxes, they'll take it out that way. Then you have this amount of money. Hey, how much do we have to pay people that bought a bond and gave us their $100, and we have to give them $102, $110, $120, whichever deal they got when they bought the bond? That's the other way that there creates some level of debt. But it's not debt like we owe it. The government can just produce enough money to get rid of the debt. Because that's what they do. They just produce money. So this thing that we're fighting over is the Republicans saying we shouldn't allow for the amount of money that we've taken out versus the amount of money that exists in the system.
Yeah.
We shouldn't allow that number to go higher.
Right.
Why not? Because calling it a credit card is not true. It's not a credit card. You are the creditor. Government. You don't have a credit card.
Right. The reason Republicans are able to use the debt ceiling as a political tool, the reason they do that is because philosophically, they purport to be against this kind of government spending. They want to reduce the services that people have available to them, that people take advantage of, that's paid for through government spending. And so rather than making an honest argument about, listen, we have the money to spend on lowering prescription drug prices, or we have the money to spend on increasing the child tax credit, or whatever it might be. We have the money to spend on that because we always have enough money to spend on anything if we decide to spend it. Instead of saying we have the money, but we don't want to spend it on this. We don't think this would be good for you. We don't think this would be good for our country. This is not the social compact that we have.
Yep.
Rather than making that argument and trying to argue on the merits of whether or not we should spend the money that we have available to spend, or that could be made available to spend, instead of doing that, they've created this false crisis of like, oh, well, nothing we can do about it. Like,
we're in debt, credit cards. Who do we owe? They use that.
Yeah. Like, oh, we would love to give you everything you want, but we can't because,
we're going to talk about this again more on Thursday. And I'll just say, Rob, I totally hear what you're saying. What I have picked up from people like economist Fadal Kaboub, who's been on with us a number of times, and Stephanie Kelton, who writes a lot about this. I like the phrase, not we have the money, but the government creates the money, so we can spend whatever we want because the government creates the amount of money that exists. It's not even that we have it or don't have it like this. I get that, that's sort of the typical way we would talk about it, because they don't have it, they make it.
Yep.
So because they make it, and you're exactly right, and we'll talk more about this. People are interested. You can go back and watch other videos or freshen up on Thursday. But here's why Republicans don't always talk about this. They do a lot. The first person I ever heard describing how this actually works, in this accurate way, was a fellow who used to have a radio show and died a couple years ago named Rush Limbaugh. He used to talk about this all the time, actually, that this is how it works. And what he would be saying then, when I would listen to him, and I think he was right, was here's why Republicans don't like this. Because in order to make sure there's not too much money in the economy. When the government puts money in, so every spending bill is new money. By the way, that's an important notion. Every spending bill is brand new money that didn't previously exist. So either the debt limit's going to, the difference number is going to go up of how much has been taken out versus how much is put in. Or you're going to take that money out. Here's what Republicans really don't like. When you put the money in, like you were saying, to pay for a child tax credit or to pay for a highway or to pay for school lunches or to pay for systems that pay attention to police forces, anything, pick your thing, whatever the money's spent on. Who are they going to take the money from when they take the money out of the system? Well, our tax code says take it from the people that have the most. So the reason so many Republicans don't like government spending is not only because they don't like the spending that someone's going to get, they think that the government then is going to take it from them, take it out of the system. So someone else got money, new money in, and they got their money taken out to balance it out. Now, their solution could be stop taking the money out. Don't worry about the debt. Then you could keep your money and new money would be spent. And then the fear there is inflation. Right? Because then if too much money's in the system, the price of things go up. And we saw that perhaps happen because so much money came in the system and production levels were down. So inflation went up, right? That's what caused inflation this last time. Most likely. Too much money. Or
maybe it had something to do with oil.
No, it's too much money in the system and not enough production caused oil to go up and shipping to go up and all the things.
Which, may have been some artificial. Like the oil industry, they're just like, I think we'll stop producing as much oil, so prices go up.
They do that, yes, and that's a thing they do a lot. So that can't explain all of that. We'll talk more about this on Thursday if people are interested in it. This argument is really an argument about the social system, and what Republicans want to keep saying is we can't keep spending. And if that was true, then cut the military budget.
Yep.
So it's not about spending because never do they ever talk about cutting the military spending. Now, I will say the goofball hardliners that held up McCarthy's election to the Speaker of the House, some of those people are actually saying we should cut military spending. So, they're going to call our bluff on that one. And fair enough. So this is what's going on. This debt ceiling thing, it's going to get solved. And one of the ways, did you hear the suggestion of the $1 trillion coin?
The $1 trillion coin, yeah.
This one's genius. It takes into account what we're talking about, how the Federal Reserve actually works when it comes to money. And it is the Federal Reserve at its own discretion gets to decide how much money exists in the world. And Yeltsin can just say, hey, mint a single coin that's worth $1 trillion and go deposit it in a Federal Reserve bank, and that will put $1 trillion into the economy. And if you think that's crazy, that's not how it works. What do you think they did with the PPP money we were just talking about? They just said,
exactly how it works.
I love it because it points out just the absurdity of what is real and what we fabricate based on it's a household budget. No, it's not. It's way different. The thing that gets me though,
put on the $1 trillion coin. If the $1 trillion coin gets minted,
George Santos on the $1 trillion coin. You'd be like the fakiest fake thing of the fakers. George Santos on the $1 trillion coin. All right. So hey, if
one last thing though, the selective outrage is what gets me, because we had 4 years of Trump, the most Republican of Republicans, their guy, and during the Trump years, he ballooned the national debt.
Oh, and that too. Yep.
Just we got a graph on the screen that shows the Obama years. It's going up at a steady clip, and then Trump just keeps going.
There it goes.
He promised to pay down the national debt, didn't do it. He promised, Mexico would build the wall too, but
Didn't pay for it.
It's almost like the guy's
Promised Stormy
not
Daniels
honest.
he'd give her $130,000, and that he did. So that'll take us to maybe a final story. He did. There was one promise he kept, and that was, "Hey, Stormy, if we
Sorry.
can let the National Enquirer buy your story and then bury it, we'll give you $130,000," which then he did, but he did it through an account that was related to his lawyer, which was related to his campaign, and it became a campaign finance violation for which Michael Cohen, his former lawyer and thug, went to federal prison for a year. And Donald Trump was individual number one. And now the DA in New York has opened up a grand jury now looking into this, which the people that I listen to have said there's no way he's calling a grand jury if he does not intend to file charges. So some information somehow has come newly or fresh, and Donald Trump, in addition to being in a civil case around his behavior after raping a woman, his involvement in the insurrection on January 6th, his meddling in the election in Georgia, his business tax attorney being in federal prison now for the crimes that he committed, now has another indictment that is likely to come down on him. And that's even before the special prosecutor, the special investigator, looks into his treatment of the documents and how he lied to the Justice Department and the FBI about him. That guy is such a criminal, it's unreal. I mean, he has... What did I just name off? 6 things that I can just think of because I paid just a little bit of attention to this. It is remarkable the level of purported criminality that this guy behaved in. And that's after he was impeached twice by his coworkers in the co-branches of government. I mean, he is such a clown show. It's unbelievable and dangerous, just reckless and dangerous.
I think, at the end of the day, if it is Stormy Daniels that ends up bringing the long-awaited indictment of Donald Trump that we have hoped for, that we have dreamed of, that we have speculated about, for all of these things and other crimes, if it's finally Stormy Daniels that's able to bring about that indictment and hopefully ultimately criminal conviction, I mean, what a happy ending to the story.
Wow, you just did happy endings with a Stormy Daniels story. That's going to get us like an adult rating over there on YouTube.
Come on, I was just sitting here.
That's
oh,
that's a little treat for anybody that sticks with us for an hour and some odd minutes. Look, I'm with you. And here's the beautiful irony of all of this. Why did they enlist all the people that they enlisted to cover up the Stormy Daniels story? Well, it's because it would be humiliating to him in his campaign. He really did not want his current wife to know that he was having an affair while she's home with an infant. Really didn't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Cover it up however you have to. Break the law if you have to, because I'm running for president and I don't want to actually use other money. So I'm going to take this money, $130,000 paid to her. All of it was designed to do what? To cover up this situation. And instead of it working to cover it up, we all know Stormy Daniels. Not only do we know about it, which we would have only known about it as a tabloid story of another thing that makes this man unappealing to a percentage of the population, but now we know about it in court documents where people are going to have to tell their story under oath before a grand jury and ultimately in a court of law about what he did. So the covering it up made the thing he was trying to prevent by covering it up all that much worse. It is, I know it's been 5 years that we've all been saying Donald Trump's, up and comings need to be up and coming. But in the longer arc of how stuff comes back and comes to the surface and shows up and reaps its harvest, this timeline is not all that long. He ran a cover up 6 years ago, and here it is.
Yep.
Now there's going to be an indictment, and her face is all over, and we all know who she is. And unbelievable that now this thing, and by the way, Melania now knows. Everyone knows. And for all the little, Trump's my guy, he got to be with an adult film star kind of person. Yeah, I don't think that's how Donnie's thinking about it. I think he's thinking about it as, I've made a huge mistake. And the level of humiliation that comes to everybody around all of this, not only for his bad behavior, but for the cover up and the paying people off, is just, you can't look away from the stuff does tend to show up.
Yep.
And Tricia says he's been getting away with it for decades. Why do we think anything's going to be different?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, but again, has he? I mean, look, okay, yes. Okay, in one
Yeah.
sense, he did become a president, yes. But he was also, called an effing moron by the people who worked for him. He was twice impeached. He's been humiliated. He lost re-election. All the rest of this stuff. He's under criminal indictment. His businesses have gone broke. He made a casino go out of business. His wife doesn't speak to him on a whole set of issues. Has he gotten away with it? Really? I mean, in what way? He's a tortured, angry, bitter man that just keeps bringing up, I didn't lose, when everyone knows he lost. Did he get away with it? Really? I mean, yes, I want him to actually go to jail, but Roger Stone, Paul Manafort, the Papadopoulos, Michael Cohen, his Michael Flynn, his accountant, all the people who've actually gone to jail around this guy. He hasn't gotten away with it. I don't know. Like, I just, and he's a candidate for the presidency of the United States again.
Still,
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But then people will say, I'll get it. I could conjure it up in 45 seconds if I wanted to. Somebody would say, oh, what? You just don't like Trump because of stuff he wrote on Twitter? Like, oh my gosh, you really think that's what it is? You really think those of us who plot our lives in order to try to stop the country from this man, or stop the man from destroying this country, think it's about what he wrote on Twitter? Really?
Yeah. Nope.
No, it's the criminal indictment stuff.
It's the crimes. It's the crimes mostly,
and the just being a bad president overall, like just the worst.
Horrible
just
person.
Did a bad job.
Horrible president.
Just did a bad job. Yeah. Well, hey, we didn't even talk about Joe. How do you think Joe did this week? Joe have a good week? Joe have a bad week? Are we on an upswing with Joe? I didn't hear a lot about documents this week, so I feel like that's a win. They didn't dig out any more secret documents that he had.
Does he have any sheds or like? Has anyone checked the pool house?
He seems like the kind of guy that would have a old schooly leather briefcase they should be looking through as well. Is there a briefcase somewhere that he's got to dig stuff out of?
Yeah.
Well, hey, by the way, next Tuesday is State of the Union address.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Maybe
Are you asking?
I am. Is that true?
It could be.
Sounds correct.
I think they're on Tuesdays, and I feel like I heard that it's next week, so I just assumed it was Tuesday.
Yep.
Shall we do a live stream during the State of the Union and
absolutely
and make Mystery Science Theater like commentaries about all of it?
Robb has whiskey. It's the only way I'll commit to it.
That's true. Robb starts on the slow drip about 3 in the afternoon.
No, we're not
going to running until 7 o'clock.
Hey, YouTube, if you want to pull down a video, pull down that one.
Pull down the one where Robb's slow whiskey drink through the. I can't remember what we were live streaming, but that was a treat.
It was Trump's presidential announcement.
Yeah.
It's the only way you can get through. Yeah.
Wow.
That was
all right. We'll see you soon, everybody.
Okay. Hey, should we say thanks to all the people? Can we do? Do you have a second for that? Thanks to Jim
we
and
have
Tricia.
Throughout, but
and Kimberly and
Diane
and Tricia and
Carrie.
Hey, and if you're not on our YouTube channel, go over there and, as the kids like to say, like and subscribe.
Smash that subscription button.
Like and subscribe. Please like me and subscribe. Could anything be just more pathetically pandering than what we all have to do over on YouTube? Please like me, and please
come to my birthday
come
party.
back.
Tell YouTube that we're not conspiracy theorists.
please sit with me in the lunchroom. Please. It helps. But in all honesty, it really helps. Now that we're monetized, which is a thing over on YouTube.
I was going to say, please let me go to the bathroom and be done with this live stream, but we can
I'll
keep
have to
going
check today. But as of the other day, we made money on our YouTube channel.
Hey, what, like 13 cents?
Nope. No.
Not quite.
More than that?
There's dollars involved. Dollars.
Fantastic.
$2.86 as of a couple days ago.
Amazing.
Love it.
$2. So, hey, your actions actually turn into dollars over there. So please go over there and just turn on the streams and let them roll all day. It's just you go into our YouTube channel and just let that thing roll, and you're like the Federal Reserve. You're just printing money and it goes right into our bank account. Just let it roll. Good one, Dan. All right, we'll see you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
At least you didn't